The National Soap and Detergent Association revealed that decluttering can cut down 40% of the average home's housework. It leads to a reduction in the stress associated with a disorganized living space. Purging clutter serves as a pathway to a more serene and clear-headed state of mind. So let's talk about the benefits, how decluttering can change your life today, but also some of the drawbacks, because there is risk involved anytime we're going to get rid of perfectly good things. Well, hi, I'm Dawn from The Minimal Mom. If we haven't met before, I'm married to Tom and we have 4 kids, ages 9 through 13. We've called ourselves minimalist for about 8 years now. And if we could go back in time about 8 years ago, we had 4 young kids. I was a stay-at-home mom and I was not enjoying it at all. I was drowning in clutter. I felt like I wasn't doing anything well or right. And I just wanted to escape from it all. And so that's when I found minimalism, and we got rid of about 80 to 85% of our stuff. We don't miss any of it, and we have never looked back. And so this topic today, how decluttering can change your life, I feel very passionately about it because we have lived it for the last 8 years, and I've seen the incredible changes that it's made in our household, but also in thousands, millions, I don't know, of other women as well. So let's talk about the benefits, how decluttering can change your life today, but also some of the drawbacks, because there is risk involved anytime we're gonna get rid of perfectly good things. So number one, let's set the scene. Why is it so confusing for us to declutter? Why isn't it just cut and dry? I'm either using the thing or I'm not. And there's a few things at play. Number one is our childhood. How we were raised and brought up very much impacts how we look at our stuff today. Did we grow up with not enough? Did we always have plenty? That's gonna play a big role in how we accumulate and manage things. And also, if you just look at our neurological makeup, we are designed to hoard or take in excess when there's extra to store up for times of leanness when there isn't enough. So obviously, as our world has changed, there were times where there was lots of extra and then times where there weren't. So our brain learned to take in extra stuff when it was plentiful. And even I think many of us can see that in ourselves when there's a good clearance or you're at a garage sale. And I would find myself getting kids' clothes and shoes and all kinds of different things, even if it was multiple sizes too big for someday, which is another drawback. We tend to imagine the future without enough. For most of us, our outlook of the future is rather bleak and definitely not enough in it, when that's not actually most of our realities. And so again, we try to hoard and store up extra in case we don't have enough in the future. Then there's also marketing, which we know marketing says if you have a problem, we have a product that will fix it. And so marketing is so just over the top right now. Everywhere we go, we're being marketed to, and most of the time we don't even realize it. And so we are constantly being pressured to buy. So there's more stuff coming in because of that. There's also an ease of access to things. We can get stuff 24/7 delivered to our door, and we hardly have to wait any time for it at all. So we have marketing telling us to buy, we have this ease of access, and many of us have a little bit more disposable income now than we might have in the past. And so this is just a recipe for our homes continuing to fill up with stuff. But what's the problem? We're also learning with all this new research that clutter equals stress. So when we are in a cluttered environment, we are releasing the stress hormone cortisol. So in our own homes, the place that's supposed to be a place of refuge and safety, a haven, we're feeling these low-lying levels of stress and anxiety, just that little bit of a buzz where we can't fully let our guard down. And so we know now that this clutter is costing us, not in the form of money, but it's costing us in the form of our mental health, feeling at peace, having times to rest and to recharge. And lastly, our brains might be designed to hoard, but they also love order. Our brains are not good at managing a lot of inventory and keeping track of everything and keeping it in order. Our brains crave for everything to be in its place, for us to very easily be able to see it, to know what we have and where it is. And as soon as stuff starts getting piled up and packed in, it is too much for our brain to manage. And often then when we're trying to decide what do I need to do, where should this go, where is it, we just kind of shut down. We're rendered inactive because it's just too overwhelming. And so then what do we say about ourselves? We say, I'm lazy, I'm unorganized, I'm not a good mom, I'm not a good wife, I'm not a good housekeeper. And we just kind of turn the other cheek. We look for other ways to disengage from it and disconnect. And we feel bad about ourselves. And we also don't have the ability then to deal with this stuff. And so I mean, so when we actually look at it, this clutter is wreaking a lot of havoc on our homes, on our own sense of well-being, our own confidence in ourselves. And so there's a lot at stake here. But again, I know this isn't always easy to unravel. So again, there's less stress and anxiety. It's easier to find the things that we need when we need them. We're not rebuying things or purchasing duplicates because we can't find the item. Our home is peaceful, easier to clean and tidy, 40% less time taking care of a home, and we have more desire and motivation to clean when our house isn't overwhelming. So again, as soon as things start to pile up, stack up, this clutter creeps in, then our brain wants to retreat. It doesn't want to try and figure out the best way to tackle this. It just says it's too much and I don't know where to start. Increased confidence in myself. I don't have that stuff telling me anymore that I'm a bad mom or a bad wife or a bad housekeeper. I'm unorganized, I'm lazy. I also feel like our kids are more creative and content with less inventory in their lives. I also shop differently now, so I don't impulse buy nearly as much. I'm very intentional about my purchases, and that feels really good because again, I had a lot of guilt over impulse purchases, buying things that I didn't need, wasting money. There has really been this domino effect that since we have simplified our home, it's also led to us getting out of debt, leading a healthier lifestyle, cooking more at home. You can also look at the statistics that say we're more productive, we're more focused, we sleep better. You sleep better if you're not in a cluttered space, and you're also in a better mood. So many benefits from highly decluttering our house. But now let's look at what are the downfalls of decluttering it. So as I was going through the list, I was trying to think like, there's really so little. The biggest thing and the thing that we worry about the most is that we could make a mistake with decluttering, and therefore there might be a situation where there is something that we need that we no longer have. And what's interesting is that in the past, when I was on the onset of decluttering, my fear was that I would declutter it and then I would have to buy it again if I needed it. But here's been my reality. One, very infrequently have I come across stuff that I've needed that I have decluttered. So it happens with very infrequently. So I had imagined that it would happen much more often than it does. It does not happen very frequently. Two, the bulk of the time, I don't end up buying the item again. I just use something else instead, or I get by without it. And so we realize, again, one of the benefits is that we're actually very creative. And so if we don't have something that we might need, very often I can think of something else to use. Worst case, I'll borrow it from a neighbor or a friend or a relative, but most of the time I can go without it or figure out something else. And then a very small, just a handful of times have I ever had to actually replace the item. And so when I look at the money that I have spent replacing items that I don't have, it is under $100 for sure. And so when I look back, again, this was the fear that I built up the most. What if I need it someday? And when I look back, I realize that that fear has only cost me less than $100. And so it is such a small risk that we're actually taking when we compare it to all of the benefits that we get to experience when we declutter our homes. And so again, they call this negativity bias, where we are more apt to look ahead with fear, with worry that I'm gonna make a mistake, I'm gonna get rid of a bunch of stuff I'm gonna need. I think there's also a very valid fear that others in our household might point it out. That if we accidentally make a mistake and we do declutter something that we have to buy again, even though it happens a very small portion of the time, there might be someone looking over our shoulder that says, ha, I knew you were gonna need that again, or I knew you were gonna declutter only to go back and buy this stuff again. And so for some of us, it's safer to take these risks, and for others, we're worried, right? We don't trust ourselves very much, and we're worried about what others in our household might say. So I wanna acknowledge that that's very real as well, and that could definitely go into the category of the cons if there are others in our life that are ready and waiting to point out our mistakes, right? That's unfortunate, that sucks, like none of us want that, and I'm very sorry if that's the situation you're in. In a perfect world, everyone in our household would be supportive and say, hey, let's go on this journey together and tell me more about the benefits, but I know that that is not always the case. But do be encouraged that if you do have some in your household that are negative towards this process, every single day I hear stories of people that come around. Once they start to see the benefits, they see the changes in you, they realize that by and large you are not rebuying anything. They're noticing that your buying habits have changed. Maybe you are cooking at home more, maybe you are being a little healthier, a little bit happier, the stress level is going down. And so usually it is just a matter of time before they start to come around as well. And so if you want to get started, if you're like, this sounds awesome, let me save you from a couple traps that you could potentially fall into when you get started decluttering. So one mistake that we can sometimes make is to get really ambitious about a certain space that we're going to declutter and pull everything out, and we get overwhelmed, we make a big mess, and then we feel like we weren't successful and maybe I'm not good at this. And so what I would encourage you is to pick one small area to start decluttering. I really like to recommend that you start in the kitchen because we use our kitchens so much, and when you have a kitchen that is streamlined and functioning really well, it's set up for the type of cooking that you do right now in this season of life, I think you're gonna find that you really enjoy being in the kitchen, you enjoy cooking, you enjoy keeping it tidy and clean. I used to dread cooking and making dinner and trying to stay on top of the kitchen. I always felt very guilty about the state that it was in. And after I highly simplified it and decluttered it, I found that I actually really do enjoy cooking. It's still not, it's not like my most favorite thing in the whole world, but cooking dinner isn't that big a deal. Often now we'll light a candle, we'll put on music, we'll do it together, we'll clean up together, and it's not overwhelming and it's not as big of a task as it was when I was working in such a cluttered space. And so you could walk into your kitchen right now and pick one cabinet. Maybe you're gonna go to the cabinet with the coffee mugs and tumblers and water bottles, and you're gonna say, my goal right now is to cut the inventory, the amount of stuff in here, in half. Because what you'll find in your kitchen is that when the cabinets and drawers and all the spaces are only about half full, it's actually pretty easy to put stuff away. It's easier to unload the dishwasher. It's easy to put stuff away that's out on the counter, or stuff that would normally just sit out all the time. Now we can find a space for it and tuck it away. And what happens if you'll go one cabinet at a time, one drawer, is that you'll start to realize that, wow, this feels really good. Again, we thrive in simplified spaces. Our brain wants this. It wants to only see the stuff that we're using, to know exactly where it is and where it goes when we're done with it. And so what I believe will happen is that you're gonna start to feel the difference, and you're gonna start to gain confidence in yourself and your decluttering abilities, and that is gonna inspire you and motivate you to go further and further. And so I know we often glamorize these big weekend declutters where we go through the whole house and we just get it all done and knock it out. But for most of us, that's not very practical because, let's face it, decluttering is a little bit overwhelming. I've said before that when we declutter, we're faced with every wrong buying decision that we've ever made, right? I'm like, oh, I spent money on that and I'm not using it. I spent money on that. I really thought I was gonna use that. Or, God, why did I fall for that marketing again? Why did I impulse buy this again? I should know better, right? And so we can kind of get a little bit hard on ourselves or feel discouraged through the process, call it decision fatigue when we're decluttering. And so that's very real. And so we wanna set ourselves up for success. So we wanna get some wins under our belt. And again, I feel like that's what's gonna motivate you and propel you forward. And good news, if you are serious about getting your house decluttered, we have lots more videos to help you. And so again, I'm a former messy person. I never thought I would be one to be talking about decluttering or organizing or getting your house simplified. And so I just want to encourage you that if you have been beating yourself up, calling yourself lazy or unorganized or unmotivated, I really don't think that's been the problem. I think you've just been trying to manage too much stuff. It's been too much clutter. And for most of us, when we're overwhelmed by it, it just renders us inactive. And so it's easier to just turn away the other way, scroll on our phone, find something else to do. In fact, again, that's what our brain is actually encouraging us to do. Take the path of least resistance, right? Find something easier. This is too hard. So I'm gonna put a link here for a playlist for our Minimalism Back to Basics series. If you're newer to decluttering and to these ideas, you don't have to want to be a minimalist or go that far, but there's some really good ideas in there to help you declutter and simplify faster. So I'll put a link to that, but I love you. I hope you have a really good day, and I'll see you again soon.